Pedro from Kepy Fishing, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're doing something a little different here on the channel. So I was invited to the Manasquan Fishing Club as their guest speaker. Yes, their guest speaker to do my first ever seminar. I did a seminar with Nikon Chesky, but this seminar was my first ever one by myself. And it was just awesome. I want to thank the Manasquan Fishing Club for inviting me. If you want any information, manasquanfishingclub.com will be right here down below. So go check out the club for more information. And I did a seminar on Tautog fishing. So this whole video is an instructional video of my experience of catching big Tautogs. So I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you like, comment, share to your family, friends, and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. All the support you guys have been giving us has been incredible, so I want to thank you guys so much. But without further ado, enjoy the video, everyone.
Especially their generosity. I'd like to introduce Pedro. So as you know, the Manasquan Fishing Club supports youth angling. We're very excited about our speaker tonight. As background, Jack, Eric Wisniewski, and I attended the Saltwater Fishing Expo in Edison last spring. We were treated to a great presentation by this young man. We were so impressed that we invited Pedro to come speak to us at one of our meetings. He's a 12-year-old fishing YouTuber. He's a Tsunami brand ambassador. He's part of the Kepy fishing channel where he specializes in New Jersey saltwater fishing from shore. Pedro's passion for the sport and his impressive knowledge of shore fishing techniques have earned him recognition in the fishing community, making him an inspiration to anglers of all ages. I'm sure you will all be impressed by his knowledge and experience. He's going to talk to us tonight primarily about togging, and he's fished our local waters, including the canal. He'll tell us about some of his exploits today. Don't be fooled by his size. He's a very accomplished angler, and he authored an article that was published in the Fisherman magazine on togging in August of last year. We will post his article on our website for all of you to read. He and his sister have also done a YouTube review of the Tsunami Airwave Elite Light surf rod, the very rod that we're raffling off tonight. That's a coincidence. Other than the fact that we like Tsunami as well. Pedro represents the future of fishing, and I'm sure we'll be hearing and reading about him in the years to come. Perhaps he'll remember our club when he's a famous guide and author. And with that introduction, please welcome Pedro and his father, Kepy.
Sorry, I'm so excited. Oh my gosh.
Don't tell me when.
Hold on, wait.
That's fine. Hell yeah, dog.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
Look at that guy.
Come. Keep going. Hell yeah, pull that bitch up. Let's go.
Holy cow. Oh my gosh, he's barely in the net. He's barely in the net. Oh, monster.
Let's go.
So what you saw there was my second ever sheep's head catch, and I'm gonna be talking about that catch a little later. But introduce myself, my name is Pedro Alfonso. I am 12 years old and I live in Orange, New Jersey. And I started fishing around I was 3 years old. So I started fishing in freshwater, catching bluegills, largemouth bass, catfish. So basically I started freshwater fishing, and when I was about 7 years old, I started saltwater fishing for fluke and bluefish. So I started out fishing in freshwater, and then I moved on to saltwater, and a few years later I started catching fluke and tog and striped bass and bluefish. I am a pro staff member of Tsunami Tackle, which specializes in fishing tackle like reels, rods, baits, and many more things. And I'm also part of Kepy Fishing. So Kepy Fishing is an acronym. We're on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook if you want to follow us. And basically Kepy Fishing, we started as a family. Keith, Elizabeth, Pedro, Trinity, my mom, Ildefonso, our last name, and fishing. So we started that journey around 2017, helping anglers on how to catch fish like flounder, bluefish, and also fishing adventures up and down the Jersey coast. So even though I'm 12 years old, I always love to catch this one fish that I recently started catching, which is Tautog. Tautog was one of my favorite eating fish and fighting fish to catch. And even though I'm 12 years old, I do have a lot of experience of catching this fish. So I want to talk about my experiences on catching these awesome fish that we have here. But a little bit of background story on Kepy Fishing. Kepy Fishing is, like I said, a YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram where we teach people on how to catch different species like flounder, bluefish, striped bass, and also tautog or tog or blackfish, however you want to call it. We also fish up and down the Jersey coast. From in the Upper Bay all the way to Atlantic City and even Cape May, we catch all species. Flounder, bluefish, spots, croakers, you name it, we catch it. So that is a little background story of Kepy Fishing. Again, if you want to check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So tautog fishing, like I said, is one of my favorite fish to catch of all time. Great eating, great fighting, and it's also a great way to get kids into fishing. Now, tautog is a very unique type of fish that you can catch. You can catch them in piers, bridges, jetties, inlets, even on a boat. So I'm basically going to talk on what techniques, gear that I use, where I've caught my fish, and the bait that I've used for tautog. And also the bycatches like that big sheepshead that I caught, which I was saying sheepshead a lot. So basically the first thing I want to talk about, I want to show a few videos of my biggest tautog catches. So I'm going to basically break it down on how I caught the fish, the gear I used, and where I caught the fish. Frozen ones, so. Huh? And these are the ones that are thawed out. That's a big dog. I need a net then. Oh my God. Yeah, boy, get him, get him. Yes, he's in. Woo-hoo-hoo! Oh my God. Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy. Not even hanging. Oh, yeah. So to break down that catch, I was basically using, as you heard, frozen crabs. The crabs I was using, Asian crabs. Asian crabs are invasive species of fish that you can catch, and they are tog candy. They are candy for tautog. And I was using a 1/2 ounce jig, and it was rough waters. It was windy, it was muddy, it was rough, but there was no problem for that blackfish to find that crab. I was basically using a Tsunami Earweave Elite rod with a 100 size bait casting reel. And how I caught it was I flipped it out a little bit and let it sit, and that fish took it right away before it hit the bottom. So that's also one of the ways that tautog key in on those Asian crabs. They love them, they key in. If they can find them, they will eat them. And also, I was fishing in an urban environment. In Kepy Fishing on YouTube, you can see where we caught those fish. It was urban. There's helicopters, there's cars, there's boats, boat traffic, there's everything. But there's no problem for those tautog to key in that location. And I was fishing on a bridge next to a rock pile. Tautog will key in on rock piles and pylons. Any piece of structure that they can find, they will hit. And in my experience, flipping right next to a rock line is the best way to catch them, because the bigger fish will actually wait right next to the rocks and come out of the rocks if they see a crab or anything that looks interesting, and they will try to eat. So they will come out of the rocks going for that specific type of bait. So that's how I caught that fish, and that fish was 17 inches, 4.5 pounds.
I got you.
Excuse me.
Here, I'm here. Bring him this way.
Come on. Don't go in there.
Wait. Wait. Now.
You got her. Woohoo! You've been haunting me, girl. You've been haunting me. Yeah, baby. Oh, tell me how we can run. Yes, sir. Beautiful female. On the airwave. Colorful salvo jig. Woohoo! Pictures in the cooler. So with that fish, I actually caught it on a green crab, another invasive species. Probably everybody knows what a green crab is. It's also a very good bait for tog. Now, I actually caught that fish in the same exact place I caught the first one, but with a little bit of a different technique. With this one, I flipped it right out, but closer to the rocks. I was literally on a boulder. Now, with that fish, if you saw the rod was going tick, 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 and then you saw the fish swimming away. In my experience, if you flip right next to a rock pile, the fish is gonna take the jig with the crab and slowly pull away and get back in that hiding position. Because blackfish will tend to hide in one area. They won't go hunting for bait like a striped bass or a bluefish would. They would stay in one area, and you do have to move around to try to find it. Now with this one, I flipped it right out and I waited for that fish to actually have the jig in its mouth. It ran away, tried to get back into the rock. I set the hook and I was able to get it in while running down the rail and saying, "Excuse me." So that was another way, using the same rod and same thing, same rod and same reel, and the same technique. With a little bit, I tweaked the technique a little bit on catching that fish. And also, I also want to take a little break and talk about how tautog fishing is also great for kids. For tautog fishing, people think it's mostly a bigger fish that you need a lot of force to catch. But that's not necessarily the reason. Tautog can be easily catched by kids too. With the right equipment and right reels you need, it's very fun for kids. Like my little sister, she has a blast catching tautog. And the rod that I found experience to recommend is a Tsunami Slow Pitch. This is the 7-foot extra heavy rod. This rod is a all-around rod. You can beat this rod up. It's an incredible rod for tautog fishing. And it's a great rod for young anglers like my sister and many young anglers. It's a great way to get them into fishing. And also you can use a simple reel. I have my Maxwell Hybrid 25, which this is my boat setup and from shore too. But you can pair it with a smaller bait casting reel or even a spinning reel in the spinning version. Now the rig that I have here this is a Belmar rig. So basically the rig consists of the weight being on top and the hook being on the bottom. That's a very famous rig for using on the boat and also using from the shore. So this is one of my favorite rigs to use from boat and shore and has produced many big fish. Also, and you can tweak the rig by using the hook leader a little shorter closer to the weight. That will cause the crab to float up less near the weight closer to the bottom.
Why is it called a Belmar rig?
So Belmar rig, it was actually invented in Belmar, New Jersey, by one of the head boats. So that's why we call it the Belmar rig or the snafu rig. So that's how we grew up calling it, the Belmar rig. Another rig is also a drop shot rig. So a drop shot rig is reversed. The weight is on the bottom and the hook is on top. So that causes the fish to actually look up and swim up and eat it and go right back down. So that's also a very big rig that I use for tautog fishing in jetties, in a canal, and even off a boat. So those are two main rigs that I usually use, and it's great for young anglers to use, and also this is a great rod for young anglers. So if you want to get kids or grandkids into fishing, that's a great way to get them into fishing. By tautog fishing with the right rod, reel, and rig, you can catch a bunch of them.
Did you catch those two target the same day?
No, those are actually 2 different days. So a day was a little rougher, the second day was a little calmer. So I caught them in 2 different days.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How did you present the crab? Did you use a whole crab, cut
So
it in half?
different ways I present the crab is I use whole, half, or even a quarter of a crab. So if I'm using Asian crabs or fiddler crabs, I will tend to use the whole crab because they're a little too small to cut in half. That way it presents a whole crab. And I use a blackfish jig, and what do I have on? So the blackfish jig tends to sit on the bottom with the hook facing up. So the way I rig the crab is I take the whole crab, I put it a leg socket next to the leg socket.
So you take the legs off then?
With the Asian crabs, I don't take the legs
Okay,
off.
okay.
So this jig right here is a tsunami tog treat. This is ½ ounce. This is a ½ ounce jig, and this jig is one of my favorite ones. The reason is because I was talking on how the jigs sit on the bottom, is it tends to sit on the bottom flat already. You don't have to move it or anything. Some of the blackfish jigs, you have to move the rod around to keep that jig up flat. The reason you want the jig up flat is because if it's lying on the bottom, the blackfish are going to be already on the bottom. So you would feel the bites, but you would snag most of the fish. It would come up snagged. Sometimes you'll get them in the mouth, but it's very difficult. So with a already flat bottom jig, it lies already flat on the bottom when it goes down to the bottom. Now the way I rig up my crab is I do a leg socket, out the other leg socket. So the crab will sit upwards, going like this, upwards like that. So it looks like the crab is already down and it's crawling around. The blackfish will see that and think, oh wait, this is a real crab. They go to eat it and the jig is already there, so you set the hook, and that's how I do it. But also with a green crab, the smaller green crabs you can use pull, the same technique and everything, but most of the time you're gonna have to cut them in half. Leg socket, out the other leg socket, it's gonna present like that again. So that's how I use up the crabs.
Okay.
Come on, son. Come on, Pedro. Go. There we go. Get him up. Get him up. Get him up. Get him up. Come on, Pedro.
Crank on him.
Get him. Crank, Pedro.
Good one?
Yeah, good one. Good one.
These rocks,
Yeah, I need that.
These rocks are like 10 feet high, so you want to get them off.
You got a while though, Dust. No rush.
Yeah, it's good fish.
Good fish, yeah.
Come on, Pedro, buddy. It's a noodle rod, but it's good fish.
Right. Oh, you just got me, I think. You just picked me up. That's why I got heavier.
That is good fish. I can feel
Bouncy.
Yeah. Curious to see what this one says. Is it shadow? What does that mean?
Hey, seriously.
You don't know. There we go.
Oh yeah, baby! Yeah! Woo!
Look at this kid go.
Let's go, double headers! Double headers!
2 at a time.
So that was on the Big Mohawk out of Belmar, and funny enough, I actually learned the Belmar rig in Belmar. So we were fishing on an offshore rig in 120 feet of water. So we were fishing out far, and the rod I used was a Tsunami slow pitch. This is the same one I used with a Max Cell Hybrid 25. I had 30-pound test braid and 30-pound test leader with a Belmar rig, but I improved it with adding another hook, which that rig is called a snafu. And we're using white crabs. So cutting the white crab right in half, putting it on the hook, and with a 6-ounce bank sinker, letting it drop the bottom and waiting for the blackfish to take a big hit, setting the hook, and as you can see, sometimes you can catch 2 of them. So that's also another part that we also do, Tautog fishing off of boats, where you can tend to get bigger blackfish. 4, 6, even 10 pounds. They get really big in offshore reefs. So that's basically what the rig and the rod that I was using off of there. And also, I want to talk about another rod that has worked very, very well for me. This is a Tsunami Slim Wave with a 2000 Tsunami Evict. This setup right here, again, is a great setup for kids and grandkids, and it's a great Tautog rod. There he is.
Yeah, baby.
That's a good fish. Yeah, I need that.
Nice job, buddy. Nice job. Good job, buddy. Oh, beautiful fish, Pedro. Uh-oh.
It's alright, we can take all the time we need. It's alright, it's alright, it's alright. Just drop it, drop it.
You gotta give a little credit to that guy doing the netting.
Yeah, he's right here. Very great job.
This way.
There she is. There she is. You can pull it off. Woohoo! So that is why I use this rod. And the reason this rod is so good for Tautog fishing is because if you saw in the video the action it had. This is a slow pitch rod, which basically means it has a very soft tip and it's very parabolic. Now, for Tautog fishing, especially for jigs, you want a light rod that has backbone, but it's also tippy and parabolic. So with this rod right here, it has a very soft tip. So when the blackfish is biting, that blackfish hit on a very subtle bite. A small bite, a scratch, 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 that fish hit. So with a stiffer rod, a stiffer spinning rod, we can say, I won't really feel that and I'll miss the fish. Sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't. But with this rod, I can feel every single little bite. And also with this reel, it's a fast action powered reel. So I can get the fish out of the rocks, out of the structure very fast, and it has a drag to handle the fish pulling. So this is a great setup for Tautog fishing. You can also use this off a boat, from shore, jetties, and piers. This is a great all-around rod. And also it's a great rod for kids to use for Tautog as well. And the jig I was using another jig, another flat bottom jig, which is an SS Jigs White Chin Wrecker. That is another great flat bottom jig. When I mean flat bottom, it stays on the bottom flat, completely flat. The crab is facing up, and that's how I was able to get those fish in. So again, if you're ever gonna buy blackfish jigs, I recommend the Tsunami Top Treat or an SS Jigs White Chin Wrecker, because those are the 2 jigs that I've used, and I've had great success on them from boat and shore. So again, if you're ever gonna go for blackfish, make sure you have that in your jig arsenal. If you're gonna go jig fishing, and rigs, if you have use a drop shot rig or a Belmar or even a snafu rig. So that's a great way to catch those Tautog. Now, when you're Tautog fishing, you will catch many other species: sea bass, burgals, even sheepshead. So that fish I caught was a sheepshead. That was my personal best one coming in at 10 pounds. So that was a very, very big fish. And I was using another flat bottom jig, which was our own jigs, Kepy jigs. So again, a flat bottom jig that sits on the bottom perfectly, and that is the best presentation. The rod I was using was a Tsunami Carbon Shield Slow Pitch, which is a new rod that Tsunami came out with, I think 2 seasons ago, with a 3000 event. So a little heavier setup, but still the rod had a soft tip. So it had a soft parabolic tip, so I could feel that fish hitting it. And in the video, I was waiting for that fish to take it. I was Tautog fishing, so I was actually intentionally waiting for the fish to take the jig. And I was fighting, I thought, oh, this is a keeper fish. When I saw it, I screamed sheep's head because that was the biggest one I've ever seen. So that rod I could feel, and that was the same way I caught it, waiting for that fish to take the jig. So the jig is light enough for it for the fish to take the jig. And also when you're jig fishing, you want to use a light jig. If you use too heavy of a jig, like a 2 ounce or a 1.5 ounce jig, the fish won't take it. The art of jig fishing, of Tautog jig fishing, is finesse. You want to have as much finesse as possible with having the backbone. That's why the Slim Wave, Tsunami Slim Wave, this is the 7-foot medium heavy, 2000 Vict, 20-pound test braid with a 30-pound test leader line, is the best jig rod that you can get. It's light enough, it has a very soft tip, and it's very parabolic. This is the best rod to use for that. Now with a lighter jig, it tends to make the fish easier to take it. Because in the wild, Tautog will grab a crab and take it. They'll run and go right back to its hole. So when you're fishing, you need to use a light jig, like a 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, or even a 1 ounce if the tide is too strong. If not, in my experience, going to a rig like a Snafu or Belmar or a drop shot is the best bet and the safest bet if you want to catch big fish. So I could get away with a 1/4 ounce with this rod because this rod can handle it. And I can feel it plus the weight of the crab, like an Asian, a fiddler crab, an Asian crab, or a green crab. It tends to make it a little heavier. So the fish can take up the jig without feeling a heavy weight and run right back. And I could feel that fish taking the jig, and I could set the hook. That is the best way, in my experience, to catch a Tautog with using a jig. Using a rig, it's a little bit different. If you can use a 1 ounce to a 2 ounce rig weight in inshore, off the shore, like a jetty or a pier, that is the best way. It's much lighter, and if the fish are very aggressive, it will actually pick up the rig without hesitation. So if they're very aggressive, you can feel the rig get off the bottom, take it, and that's when you can set the hook. So in my experience, that's the best way for using a jig. So for structure fishing, Tautog love structure. Rocks, pylons, oyster beds, anything that they can find, you know there'll be blackfish there. So in my experience, fishing rocks is the best bet because the crabs are going to be in between those cracks and holes, and the blackfish are going to be waiting for them, picking them up and going right back to their holes. Also, if you don't have rocks, fishing a pylon is also very useful because pylons, the crabs will be hanging on them, and also barnacles will be on there. Barnacles is another major bait to use, like clam or barnacles. If you get them, you can use them on a rig or a jig, and it's the best. It's also another good bait for Tautog fishing. So if you find a pylon, you can drop right next to it. Get as close as you can, in my experience. Get as close as to the pylon, and the fish will be on there. So those were a few of my ways, in my experience, of catching fish near jetties and also pylons. And also earlier today, I was fishing in the canal, the Point Pleasant Canal, and there weren't that many rocks. So in the Point Pleasant Canal, there's a wall. The fish will also hang around the wall. You drop right next to the wall and the fish are gonna be there. I caught a nice 15-inch blackfish today, a keeper blackfish in the Point Pleasant Canal right next to a wall. So that's also another major part if you can't find rocks or pylons. Always find structure and make sure you have the gear that you need, that can handle these fish. So any questions?
Yeah, is the sheep's head edible?
Yeah, the sheep's head is very good.
Are there size limits?
No, there's no size limits on them, so you can keep as many as you want at whatever size. So that's one of them. Yes.
What kind of weight were you using when you were on the boat? How much weight were you using when you were
So on the boat I was using 6 ounces.
Right, okay.
The current wasn't that much, so I can get away with 6 ounces. But later in the day, you needed to use a heavier weight, 8 to 10 ounces. So I was using a bank sinker as well.
And that pole handled that without...
Yeah, this rod can handle up to 7 ounces, but if you need to, it can handle up to 10. So this rod, extra heavy, or if you can, extra heavy, or you can also go to an extra heavy, which is the heaviest one. So that will handle the bigger fish and heavier weights.
Pedro, what do you think about flat sinkers versus bank sinkers?
Flat sinkers versus bank sinkers. Our bank sinker, are we talking about teardrop sinkers?
Yeah.
Teardrops. So a flat sinker, in my experience, can get through the cracks and holes, because when you're fishing, the weight will get stuck. So in my experience, a flat sinker is much easier to use to get out. If you're stuck, you can get the weight easier. Also, you can use it for teardrops. You know, if I'm off the shore, you can use teardrops. But I like using flat sinkers better. But I want to thank everyone that was here. I also want to thank the Manasquan Fishing Club for having me here. This was my first ever seminar. I hope you like it. Thank you very much.
That's off to the net man too.
We give our speakers and their guests complimentary Manasquan fishing hats.
There you go.
We will pass out the sheds at the, well, if you want, you could.
We can put our on this.
Yeah.